She's laying the groundwork for a motion to dismiss.
Hello, and a warm welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime.
And it was wall. You know, the headboard was up against the wall. The side where Kaylee was on was up against the wall. And if you can imagine Kaylee in an upright sort of position, up in the corner, slumped.
Now, for my part, I really don't understand why Kaylee's folks are giving statements about the crime scene, about these details, to the media. If you want the case not to go to trial because of jury contamination, this is the way to do it. I do understand that today's motions are to try to have the charges against Kohberger dismissed ahead of a trial. Is that because they're scared of what could happen if the case is heard? I wouldn't be surprised if Kohberger's defense are going to try to argue trial by media behind closed doors. But I think what that really shows is how weak the defense case is. If you really wanted to show your client was innocent, and he was innocent, all you'd need is to show his phone, show where he was, show his location data. Does Kohberger have an alibi? Do you remember how long it took him to come up with a sorta, kinda alibi? Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Bear in mind I have a 151 video playlist on the Idaho student slayings. Also, I'll be doing a live stream on the Jennifer Dulos case. It's really reaching a really interesting point at the moment as the mistress, Michelle Troconis. We are looking at interrogation tapes, really fascinating statement analysis. So I'll be doing a live stream, I think at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So look out for that. If you find this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Now, in recent footage of the now bare patch, a white square where the funhouse used to stand, it's clear we can see a kill box within a kill box. Well, what do I mean? What I mean is the house itself was what it was. It was a death trap for 4 of the 6 that were staying there. And you could clearly see that by just how thin those walls and floors were. Anyone that was going into that house at night, well, you'd be hearing the clip-clop, you'd be hearing everything. And the fact that Kaylee was sitting up was because she obviously did hear something and she was awakened. And you must remember, Maddie and Kaylee were on the top floor. Well, there was no one else that should have been on the stairs or on the way up there besides Maddie and Kaylee, certainly not at 4 o'clock in the morning. So when they heard someone, that must have definitely, put up the hair on the back of their necks. And so Kaylee did seem to try and deal with her attacker. And that, I think, woke up the person who was right immediately downstairs and also the person immediately next to her. And I think the fact that there were 2 people in that bedroom and that bed was a big surprise, one of many big surprises for the assailant. And if you think about it, it was a death trap for someone trying to play ninja assassin, which is what he was trying to do. He went in there with a plan and thought that he could, just by using the lateness of the hour and the cover of night. But what I don't think he really figured was the sound aspect, because the walls were paper thin inside the house, even the exterior. As I say, the walls were as well. And you can see that how easily the house was completely demolished in less than an hour. But there's also another aspect to it. It's also plain to see how the house is situated in this particular image, where you can see the area minus the house. And especially with the snow there, it's kind of just a blank white square. You can see very clearly now how situationally it's a kill box within a kill box. What do I mean by that? Well, it's a little bit hard to describe if you haven't been there yourself, if you haven't driven there and found how you've got to drive quite carefully as the roads get narrower and narrower. And as you approach the address, you sort of end up going into a maze of, to some extent, one-way roads, very cramped roads, also roads that tilt quite steeply up and down. They sort of curl in on themselves, and because of the number of vehicles parked sometimes on both sides of the road, you've got to drive very carefully in order not to, scrape against a vehicle. And besides all of that, this house is set or was set on an embankment. So you kind of have a combination of driving into an urban setting bristling with cameras, and also a structure that is literally surrounded in multiple dimensions by line of sight. It's almost like a glass box on a table. Now, although the killer thought that he could sneak up on the victim or victims unseen, like Caitlin Armstrong in Austin, he actually did the opposite. He was seen from miles away, literally. He got himself seen all over, despite using the cover of night. And that's not the half of it. He wasn't just seen. He was apparently heard inside the house and outside the house as well. So today we're going to have a couple of hearings, one behind closed doors, another that is open to the public. What is going to happen during these hearings? Well, I have a prediction. My prediction for what is likely to come out of today's hearings in a legal sense, just one thing really, the long-awaited court date. It's likely going to be in June this year. I'm not going to take it further than that, but I would be interested to know what you think about Kaylee's parents talking to the media. It seems like it was also done in a way to coincide with the interest in today's legal proceedings. Do you think that, do you agree with it? I think part of it is also due to the quite widespread distrust of the legal system and to some extent law enforcement. Do you think this is the way for people to go about dealing with that distrust, by just going to the media? Let me put this in another way. Do you think the media can sentence the suspect to whatever term? Do you think the media have the power to try somebody? And although I think it's possibly a lot more satisfying, and I'm sure most of social media will applaud this sort of thing, if you ask me, it's something that can literally threaten the court process. I do understand that there's feelings of impatience, feelings of frustration. These cases can take a heck of a long time. The whole legal thing takes a long time to go through. I'm dealing with my own battle with an insurance company, and it is agonizing. You do want results sooner than later, but one does also have to follow the rules. There are protocols. What do you guys think? I mean, a gag order is in place for a reason. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.